March 1st, 2022, St. Petersburg, Russia. We just arrived here. It's like the only ATM in the entire city that's available. We got screamed at by the guards, telling us that there's no money in the ATM and that we should leave immediately. Yeah, bro, this is what it is, you know, bringing back the Soviet Union. Hey everybody, it is your boy Roman, and I guess guys, now, with everything that's going on in the world, you can officially call me hairy and bankrupt. It's official now, guys, the Russian economy is done, and so am I, you know, I'm going down with it. Yes, in this video I'm gonna...
I mean, he can't even make money off this, right? Like he can't, even if there were ads on this YouTube video, like YouTube will literally not pay him the AdSense money currently with the way that sanctions work.
We're talking about the overall sanctions on Russia right now, the state of the Russian economy, how people are reacting to this, what's going on. And I've actually received a lot of comments and DMs on Instagram of people saying that, like, basically people saying that I only care about money and my own well-being, like I don't care about people in Ukraine or whatever. Again, I totally understand why people might be annoyed with me, but I don't really know if there's really anything else I can do. I've made my position very clear and very vocal.
Dog, it doesn't matter. They hate you, okay? That's just, you know, they hate you because they ain't you. I don't know how else to describe it. This kind of fucking attitude towards like average Russians is so insanely fucked up. So insanely fucked up. Azan loves this guy now. No, I mean, he already fucking said this is Soviet Russia. I don't give a fuck about his personal point of view. I don't even give a fuck about his like political perspective. Ultimately, it just sucks because it is the unfortunate reality of sanctions. This is the other side of the fucking sanctions. Same hair? Yeah, that too. It's such a weird thing also to see. It's such a weird thing to see people like celebrate, you know, fuck these people, like they're at fault. Like they have no say in this, you know? They have no fucking say in this whatsoever. What do you want?
And this channel has always been about my daily life in Russia and just lives of regular Russians and what it's like to be in Russia. So I think it's only right if I make this video to talk about how Western sanctions and also Russian counter-sanctions affect me right now in Russia. Because I'm really fucking concerned and I'm completely fucked, basically. I'm fucked. Also guys, one thing I want to say before we get into this is that in the current situation, the future of Western social media in Russia is very uncertain. I actually would not be surprised if like YouTube or Instagram or whatever actually get blocked. So I made a Telegram channel, Roman_nofuckers. Go and follow it. I post updates there. So yeah, if you want to keep up with me, follow it just in case. But now let's get into the video. So the sanctions, these are really bad. I mean, honestly, the Russian economy...
Isn't that the whole point of sanctions, to put pressure on the populace to affect change from within? Yeah, but it doesn't fucking matter if, one, the country that you're trying to implement sanctions on is already an economic powerhouse, and two, the country that you're trying to implement sanctions on is already powerful enough to withstand it does not care about the fucking safety and security of its own citizens. So, and the only time sanctions do end up fucking working is in instances where countries are powerless in general, and they don't even fucking work to create a revolt. If anything, it just makes the leader in control of that country more fucking aggressive and authoritarian. They take authoritarian measures to squash any sort of fucking protest that comes as a consequence of those sanctions. The times when a sanction will work is like people are saying South Africa, right? Yeah, our ally. It works if the only place where a sanction can work is not if it's a foreign adversary, but if it's a fucking ally, okay? That's why I always say, like, sanctions could work on Israel. Sanctions could work on Saudi Arabia. Sanctions can work on American allies that are doing brutal and awful things. Sanctions are not usually going to work. Sanctions are not usually going to work on a country like Russia because, one, Putin doesn't really give a shit about his perspective. He doesn't really give a shit about what happens to his citizens, it seems. And also he has enough power, like he currently is flexing to be able to withstand the sanctions. Like people saying, I think sanctions might cause Russian people to try to overthrow Putin, but I don't know. It can go either way. And by the way, I do totally understand. He said he's fucked up. How are sanctions not working again? Dog, he's a perfect example of why sanctions fucking are really stupid in this situation, but there's nothing else that you can do. So I get the other side of this argument as well. That's why I'm saying like it's a little bit more complicated than just being like this is good and this is bad. He already was a fucking anti-Putin Russian guy. What changed? The only thing that changed in his life is that it's just shittier now. He's fucked.
Is in shambles right now, and look, it's really hard because I feel like for the majority of the time, like before when sanctions were imposed on Russia, the majority of them were imposed to like harm the elites. Right now the sanctions are very much there to, you know, cripple the Russian economy as a whole, and also to make the average Russian suffer, should I say. And I guess the overall thought process of the Western countries is that like if people in Russia really get it hard, then they might actually, you know, rebel or whatever, but I don't really think that's gonna happen, honestly. And also because the sanctions that are imposed right now in Russia, I mean, these pretty much harm the average person. And honestly, I'm not gonna try to give you guys like a complete list of what happens. I'm gonna, I guess, pinpoint the main ones, kind of describe what that does to me and the average Russian. But yeah, guys, I mean, at this point, it's really hard to keep up with this. You know, when like every single hour I open the news and I see that some new sanction has been imposed, some new company stopped working in Russia, some new service decided to shut down its operations in Russia. And at this point, like, yeah,
people who were pro-Putin before aren't going to blame him for the sanctions now. They're going to blame the West and see Russia as the victim of international community turning against them. And people who are anti-Putin are already anti-Putin, and now they're anti-Putin, and also on top of that, getting fucked by the sanctions. Also, apartheid was deeply unpopular at that stage. Sanctions pushed the MP government over the edge. It did because economic deviation, though, and as devastation, you mean, as well as capitalist country, it affected the poorest the most. But South Africa is the best case scenario for sanctions, which is not a very solid pro-sanctions argument. Let alone like a successful insurrection or insurgent movement within the country as well, on top of the sanctions that most Americans at the time would have considered terrorism, and did actually famously consider terrorism, and would definitely consider terrorism if it were to happen in the United States of America. Oh wait, similar things did happen in the United States of America. The Black Panther Party. And you know, people still throughout American history consider them to be terrorists as well. So, but once again, the sanctions itself ultimately become a finger wagging operation that ends up harming, you know, it makes it seem like we're doing something because there's not really much you can do because Russia is a nuclear superpower, right? So you can't engage in military action because that would mean world war. Okay. But you can do sanctions, like full-blown nuclear option level sanctions, which still has like some carve-outs for pre-existing energy agreements that they have. And then also on top of that, like we saw in the UK, carve-outs for specific oligarchs that, you know, command a significant portion or have a significant portion of British interests, for example. Russians suffer from sanctions. Ukrainian civilians are dying at the moment. No, I understand that. You live and work in a country with shit leaders. You pay the price is such a fucking disgusting take. Because these people have no say in the matter. You live in a fucking disgusting country. We all live in a disgusting country with disgusting leaders. You understand that, right? He didn't pick to fucking be Russian. I don't know. But I get the other side of the argument too. Is like, what are you supposed to do? You can't do anything. You can't like continue to fucking trade with Russia and allow them to fund their war efforts. You're directly funding, even when you're doing, even when you're currently engaging in energy trades, energy agreements. You're still helping Russia fund its fucking war effort. You know what I mean? So the alternative in this situation is like sanctions also have to come with a. I feel like sanctions also have to come with a time limit, which kind of eliminates the purpose of sanctions, because then you can, you know, reshape your economy against the specific time limit. But at the very least, like an end point, which is, hey, sanctions will end the moment that you decide to agree to terms of a ceasefire. Americans would never support the same against their country, even though their government deserves it the most. Exactly. Sanctions are an act of collective punishment. But because Western nations are the ones that have the power to be able to enact sanctions, they are the ones who have written the rules, and therefore they are the ones who are able to do collective punishment. In any other circumstance, you would consider that to be an act of war, you would consider that to be unjustifiable, but because America gets to do it, it doesn't matter. It's disproportionately felt by average citizens. Okay, just average citizens who will suffer the consequences of said sanctions. They can work if they're done towards allied nations, which rely on our financial and material support. That's why I say, like, if nations are aligned almost entirely with the United States, a sanction would be successful in stopping their initiatives. Even before you hit a sanction, actually, all you need to do is shut off the faucet. Like for Israel, for example, or Saudi Arabia, for example, that would 1000% put a immediate fucking break on the actions that Saudi Arabia is engaging in Yemen, or the actions that Israel is engaging in Palestinian territories. But we will never do that, of course. So that's besides the point, because those guys are doing the right thing, and those are not bad guys, but instead good guys doing the good thing. Because they're, you know, because they're our allies. Bad ending Hassan takes? What? Oh, in some parts of the United States, boycotting Israel is literally illegal. Yes, yes. In most of the red states where they love freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom to be able to protest, in all of those states, free speech and the First Amendment just means you should be able to say the N-word without any repercussions and nothing else. Those are the same states where you have to literally fucking sign a pledge of allegiance to Israel and state that you will never join BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, to be able to fucking teach at a public school. Like, that's literally what you have to do in Arizona. You have to do that in Texas, and all these fucking places where those yee boys who are like, yeah, fuck yeah, we love free speech, baby, will literally be like, you can't even fucking protest against Israel if you want to be if you want to work with the state government.
I get it, nobody fucking likes us. Anyway, the sanctions are as harsh as they could have been, I guess. I mean, Russia got cut off from SWIFT, which is already an issue for me. Basically, long story short, if we're talking about me right now, like, I'm not able to get paid at all right now. From YouTube and from Patreon, guys, I can...
How come you don't say none about the black people in Ukraine? I've said something about African refugees in Ukraine every single day. Every single day. So far. Like, every single fucking day. As a matter of fact, let's see if you've been in the chat. How do you feel about them leaving black people behind in Ukraine? Ukraine don't care about black people. Well, last time you asked that question, I probably answered you or covered it on that day. Very strange. I've covered it every single day. I covered it today as well.
Not get paid. I've gotten a lot of Patreon donations from you guys, you know, trying to support me and everything, but I think it's gonna be a while before I'm able to withdraw those funds, you know. I have like a registered business account in Russia, I pay taxes and everything, and both of the banks that I had my business accounts in are sanctions and are cut off from SWIFT. I cannot make money on either of them right now. It's either, you know, I try to make a new bank account, but also the problem is that even if I make a new bank account, like a bank account in a bank that has not been sanctioned yet, nobody can guarantee that those banks wouldn't be cut off from SWIFT either. So yeah, right now guys, I mean, I'm not like starving or anything. I have savings which are burning down every second because, well, it seems like having dollars in Russia right now is not even safe anymore because, you know, I thought I'm like a smart guy because I had a lot of my money in USD as opposed to rubles, and I was like, well, if the economy crashes, I'm gonna be sort of fine anyway. But right now it doesn't really seem like having dollars in your bank account is even safe because banks are running the fuck out of foreign currency. We just arrived here at the only ATM of the greatest bank in Russia, Tinkoff. Actually a pretty good bank to be honest, but not in the state of the economy currently. If you go online right now and look at the ATM map of that particular bank, and I got some money in it, it's like the only ATM in the entire city that's available. And it said that it had dollars, euros, and some rubles, like 300,000. Which is gonna be worth like $2 by tomorrow anyway. But yeah, this is it. There was like a huge line in the back. We got told that
it does feel like a necessary evil in this situation. I get it. Like I it's not something that I can give like a 100%. Like this is a 100% absolutely not like attitude on. It just doesn't. I don't think it's like actually harming the people that it's supposed to though. But what are you supposed to do? Like, there's nothing else. There's nothing else. If it's, there's nothing else. The only other thing you can do in this situation, you have to try to cripple, you have to try to you have to let Russia suffer in some way, right? Like in any way, you have to try and do something, anything, right? But the idea that like people are gonna revolt and all this shit, like it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna materialize. It's not gonna stop. It's not stopping Russia from invading. The only way I can justify something like this is if you also pair that up with a forcible ceasefire conversation. Russia wants to have ceasefire conversations at the barrel of a gun with Ukraine. Okay. We all know that the main actor in this conflict, one could put an end to all of this bloodshed, is after Russia, of course, is the United States of America. Okay? If both sides can make concessions on a fucking peaceful agreement towards neutralizing Ukraine, which, of course, no matter what happens going forward, is going to fucking despise Russia anyway. So that's like in America's strategic interest to ensure Ukraine is at least on paper neutralized. They'll still fucking despise Russia, don't worry, and they'll still be a strategic asset for you, don't fucking worry, going forward and forever. I feel like that's having ceasefire negotiations by definition done at the barrel of a gun. That's why they're called ceasefire. Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. America is like pointing an economic gun at Russia, while Russia is pointing a literal gun at Ukraine. And no, I do not think it's too late for that. I do not think it will ever be too late for that. There's no, that's how wars end. There's no way in which there is like a total militarily defeat. That's fucked up but funny. Like, zoink, Scoop, this doesn't feel like a military exercise. Yo, that is kind of fun. This is the first meme I've seen that's kind of funny about. Isn't the whole point of this war for Ukraine deciding its own fate and not the US or Russia? Dog. What do you think is going to happen? Ukraine wants, as a part of its own fate, as a part of its own destiny, for fucking NATO to intervene. That's never going to happen. So what do you mean? Why is Ukraine asking for NATO support? Where would Ukraine be without NATO guns? It would be nowhere. Where would Ukraine be without NATO training? Why does Ukraine want to be a part of NATO? Because without NATO and without Western superpowers helping Ukraine, they would have gotten rolled way harder than they did in 2014. Okay? That's a crazy fucking take to act like the Western powers have no say in this process. When the reason why we're having a conversation even about sanctions is not because Ukraine sanctioned Russia, it's because Western powers are sanctioning Russia. They should be. I feel like we've abandoned them. The abandonment was going to happen from day one. That's what I've been trying to fucking say. Joe Biden has been saying for months, of course we're not going to send American troops there. Of course we're not going to send American troops there. And the reason for why we were not going to send American troops there is because that would mean World War III. That would mean a nuclear superpower and another nuclear superpower fighting each other, which is, you know, nuclear holocaust. Dude, fuck NATO, but a neutral Ukraine is something that simply cannot exist, like 0% survival chance. And even if that is the case, even if neutralization of Ukraine is not something that you can even do, so you're saying that without NATO, Ukraine wouldn't have been able to resist this successfully? There's two arguments here. Of course, without NATO, Ukraine wouldn't have been able to resist it successfully, which legitimizes NATO, right? I get that. Certainly. Vladimir Putin is legitimizing the reason, the stated reason for why NATO exists, right? By behaving this way, by doing this, exactly this. But what you also have to recognize, what you also have to understand is, this is my analysis from before Vladimir Putin invaded, and because he's behaving in this like super erratic and super psychotic fucking way, I don't even know if it's something that we can know to be true anymore. Okay, what I'm about to say. But without NATO, there's no reason for Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine unless you legitimately believe that he's like Duginist. He wants to fucking invade all these other countries. He wants to invade everybody. He wants to maintain territorial control. And that's the ultimate goal here. And if he hadn't invaded Ukraine, I would disagree with you vehemently. But now that he has invaded Ukraine, I don't know. Okay? And not invading Ukraine in the same way as like Crimea, but in full-blown invading Ukraine. Because this is even more than what happened in Georgia. Okay, this is an act of aggression that goes beyond what happened in Georgia, the stated interests of Georgia, the stated interests of what he claimed was happening in Georgia. Okay? And Georgia, which is a much, much smaller country than Ukraine, of course. But there's a reason why he didn't do this to Finland. There's a reason why he didn't do this to Ukraine for a very, very long time. And there's a reason why he didn't do this to Georgia for a very long time as well. My belief is similar to Mersheimer's, where it comes from the threat of Georgia and Ukraine joining NATO, which was seen as a red line by Vladimir Putin and was seen as a red line by fuck Vladimir Putin, but a sovereign territorial power that did not want NATO expansion into these two neighboring regions, okay? Into these two neighboring countries. That was his purpose. Except, of course, is a chicken or the egg situation where it does justify the existence of NATO. He's invading to put a puppet government in control. Our government just told him to fuck off. Therefore, he started an invasion. NATO doesn't matter. I do think that a puppet government, like an installation of an unfavorable, unpopular puppet government going forward, especially, is never going to be acceptable. It's never going to be even remotely acceptable. It's just not. It's a wrap. But no matter what happens, the only way to move forward from here, the only way to try to, at the very least, exhaust all fucking options is not by like putting $1 million bounties on Putin's head, is not by fucking sanctions that don't actually also lead to some kind of concession and some kind of peace treaty. Okay? Because there's only two ways this ends. You fucking try to wipe out as much as you can of Ukraine and try to crush them, kill their civilian population, do unjustifiable, completely unjustifiable things that are even beyond the pale right now from where you're standing. Because what we're looking at right now is what's going on in Ukraine is horrific, right? It can get so much fucking worse, and it would get so much fucking worse. So either Vladimir Putin just fucking rolls over Ukraine and is like carpet bombing, okay? Is carpet bombing Ukraine and then installs like some puppet leader, okay? And then they are doing a continued continued counterinsurgency in the country over and over again forever in perpetuity. And this country already now has a fuckload of guns, fuckload of weapons, okay? Or there's some kind of negotiation at the end of all this, where there's something that is a semblance of what do you call it? A neutralization agreement. Because if it's not ethnic cleansing, like, what is the alternative? That the Ukrainian military, with all the weapons that they've gotten from NATO countries, is going to be able to fucking defeat Russia militarily? I don't think so, but maybe it'll happen. I hope. But it doesn't seem likely. Because Hillary Clinton famously talked about Afghanistan the other night on MSNBC, which is, of course, laughable. Okay? Hillary Clinton talked about Afghanistan the other night on MSNBC, where she said, Afghanistan is where USSR died because it was a long and fucking endless bloody battle for the USSR, which could not deal with an insurgency who got weapons from us and Western allies. Okay? That's what she said. Now, of course, that's a lot of irony there. Here, I'll just show you the actual video. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you the actual video here. Find it real quick. Hillary Clinton had this to say about fucking Ukraine and Afghanistan and Russia and the USSR. Trigger warning, Hillary Clinton.
The Russians invaded Afghanistan back in 1980. And although no country went in, they certainly had a lot of countries supplying arms and advice and even some advisors to those who were recruited to fight Russia. It didn't end well for the Russians. There were other unintended consequences, as we know. But the fact is that a very motivated and then funded and armed insurgency basically drove the Russians out of Afghanistan. Obviously, the similarities are not ones that you should bank on, because the terrain, the development in urban areas, et cetera, is so different. But I think that is the model that people are now looking toward. And if there can be sufficient armaments that get in, and they should be able to get in along some of the borders.
Bro, some of y'all will literally say anything in the chat. I saw someone say, yo, Hillary's looking fine as fuck. Someone in the chat unironically said, damn, Hillary's looking fine as fuck. You need to find God, okay? You understand me? You need to find God. The fuck is wrong with you, bro? You need to go to jail, okay? Down horrendous, dude. Down worse than that fucking Texas congressperson who literally risked it all for the ISIS bride. God damn. Okay, listen. Here's what I had to say. First of all, Hillary Clinton talking about this is fucking hilarious. Secondly, Secondly, what the fuck happened in Afghanistan? And then what happened? You know, the USSR invasion, first of all, is not a direct comparison because, like, while the Ukrainian government is aligned with the West, it's not like the West fucking invaded Ukraine or America invaded Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine. USSR went into Afghanistan at the behest of the communist government, okay? And there's a bit of that story that she is not telling. I don't know if it's on purpose or maybe she is unaware of it. Probably a bit of both. Which is our actions gearing up in Afghanistan and creating, and there was legitimate interest from the population regardless because the communist government was doing a fucking horrific job and was very brutally suppressing Islam and de-Islamizing. I don't know what the fucking the point would be. Parts of Afghanistan that should have never happened. Even the USSR's own analysts thought that was a fucking horrible idea. Part of the reason why they wanted to fucking overthrow the current communist government of Afghanistan at the time. Anyway, I'm getting into like super fucking complicated history here, but I love that she glanced over the additional consequences of Russia going into Afghanistan. Okay, but one thing that I find rather strange here is one, America's involvement, of course, in the lead up to reactionary forces like blowing up, areas in Kabul and shit like that are with our help and with our fucking goading. And two, do you want Ukraine to turn into Afghanistan? Like, that's not good for the people. If you ask the people in fucking Afghanistan, I'm pretty sure they're not super happy about the current situation there. Like, it is deeply selfish for us to be like, yeah, what we should do now is a 20-year fucking insurgency campaign in Ukraine. Hey, guess what? Ukrainians, Slava Ukraine, we're with you. We stand with you. Have fun with a fucking 20-year military, 20-year fucking 20-year insurgency campaign against a brutal occupying force. Have fun with that. What kind of consequences will that fucking have for the country? What kind of consequences will that have for the citizens there? Like, just no concern for this whatsoever. As the supposed global police superpower that we believe America is, we never fucking use our might and our military and our economic power for any kind of fucking good. We never adjudicate in a positive capacity. We are seeing the demise of Ukraine as nothing but a strategic position to utilize against our... What do you mean, read the tweet? We are using Ukraine as a strategic position to fucking cripple our foreign adversary. Okay? We have the power to put an end to this. We have the power to put an end to all of the fucking evil wrongdoings on this planet. But we won't. We won't.
Between other nations and Ukraine, and keep the Ukrainian, both their military and their citizen volunteer soldiers supplied. That can continue to stymie Russia. Now, let's be clear that Russia has overwhelming military force. But of course, they did in Afghanistan as well. They also brought a lot of air power to Syria. It took years to finally defeat Syria in terms of the insurgencies, the democratic forces, as well as others who battled the Russians, the Syrians, and the Iranians. So if you're fighting for your homeland, you're fighting for your family, you're fighting for your ideals, that's far more powerful than sending in these poor, young Russian soldiers who didn't even know where they were going until they crossed the border and people were screaming at them and they realized they were in Ukraine. So I think we have to watch this carefully. We have to provide sufficient military armaments for the Ukraine military and volunteers. And we have to keep tightening the screws.
I don't have a problem with fucking arming Ukraine as long as we're not presenting them with a fucking false hope that they can defeat Russia without taking on significant amounts of fucking human casualties. And we are goading Ukraine, just like dangling NATO membership in front of Ukraine when it was never going to happen. We are goading Ukraine into extending the fucking conflict. Everybody now, of course, as a consequence of fucking Russia behaving in the way that it did, is now under the firm suspicion and firm belief that, like, they are trying to do the Russian Empire. They are trying to do the Russian Empire. They're going to do the Russian Empire. So there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do but just fucking what? Throw Ukrainian bodies? Throw Ukrainian bodies at the problem? You know, there's no other way. There's no other way out around this. You played the clip. What do you mean? What clip? What should the U.S. do? Call a fucking call a ceasefire. But they're willing, dude. Give them a chance to fight back, dude. The West wants Ukrainians to fight Russia on behalf of their 20+ years. The West does not care about Ukrainian deaths, and Ukrainians want to fucking probably fight for 20+ years. Like there's probably plenty of fucking. There are probably plenty of fucking Ukrainians who are like, yeah, we'll fight for as long as it takes. But it does not matter. It doesn't matter. The escalation in this situation is the best way to avoid further casualties. Y'all realize you're talking about people die. Exactly. I do realize that. So what is the solution? Putin will not go for a ceasefire at this point? Dude, I think that Putin calling in a ceasefire with Zelensky is entirely different than America agreeing to a genuine ceasefire. And even if it doesn't work, right? Even if that ceasefire agreement does not fucking work, right? Then what do? Then it's back to fucking square one. Okay? Do you understand? So it's a win-win, I guess. Not even a win-win, but like, there is no reason not to try it. Do you understand what I mean? Because if Putin's going to fucking Putin and he truly wants to restore the Russian Empire, then Hassan, you are naive to think Putin could ever accept the laws? No, dude. It's not naivete in this situation. It's exhausting every fucking option. And if you don't trust, you're sounding pretty not cool right now. And if you don't fucking trust Putin, and I totally understand why you wouldn't, okay, obviously, why the fuck would you? He's literally bombing the shit out of Ukraine right now. Then nothing changed from yesterday to today. Do you understand? The only thing is, you tried. You tried your best. I personally don't think Ukraine will lead to World War III. What would is the collapse of Russia? What would lead to war for control over territory and stalling governments by both NATO and China? Why do you people keep saying read the tweet? Remember, the Russians invaded Afghanistan back in 1980, Hillary Clinton says. It didn't end well for the Russians, but the fact is that a very motivated and then funded and armed insurgency basically drove the Russians out of Afghanistan. Yeah, and then what did they do? What did that armed insurgency end up doing? You know, there's a reason why, like, British press was writing about fucking Osama bin Laden as, like, the great anti-communist, you know? Ooh, the businessman who fought bravely and valiantly against the fucking Russians, you know? And then what did they do? Was there something else that they ended up doing? Anyway, look, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck will happen, but yeah, Ukrainian special forces will no longer capture Russian artillerymen. The commander of the Ukrainian special forces has warned that it will kill captured Russian artillerymen in response to the brutal shelling of civilians and cities. I don't know why the fucking Kyiv Independent wrote that, not realizing that that's like literally a fucking war crime. I know that they're like on obviously the side of Ukraine, but that's a really silly thing to fucking report on. I would do my very best to hide that if I was, you know, trying to you know, do propaganda for one side.
It's nothing. In the beginning of the video, I recorded, that was actually me going in the morning to the ATM, the only ATM in the entire city of St. Petersburg that was on the map, like ready for dollar withdrawal, right? So I went there and there was like a line from like, there were like 50 people in the line, and before anybody even got to withdraw the funds, people were basically just told that there is no cash available at all. So yeah, things are looking pretty grim. You know, you can't really withdraw dollars from any bank right now. Even withdrawing rubles is pretty hard as well. And I don't know, at this point it really feels like a lot of the USD that I have is gonna just fucking disappear. And and it's not like I can really send it anywhere either because Swift is fucked. So yeah, pretty much anybody right now in Russia that's like kind of like me, who's been making money and paying taxes and everything, who's been making money from abroad, I guess, or in foreign currencies, all of these people are fucked. So these are like IT engineers, you know, YouTubers, streamers, everybody's fucked. What can I fucking say? It's over. It's actually over. And yeah, since the ruble is pretty much crashing every single day, all of my ruble savings, you know, are turning into nothing. That's what I said. You guys can call me hairy and bankrupt now. And people already noticed this as well in like the span of 3-4 days when Russia got sanctioned and everything.
Based logic 1. I'd rather die fighting than live a coward. I stand with the Ukraine people who wish to fight against invaders. You are a neurodivergent YouTube essayist watching pasty little shitbird who has not seen sunlight in the last 18 years of your life. You can fucking do the Bayesian logic shit and be like, I stand with the fucking Ukrainian people. But if you're not fucking joining the Foreign Legion and taking up arms, then shut the fuck up. Okay? We're talking about people literally just like being goaded by those who have absolutely no fear of Russian involvement, hyping this shit out. Anyway,
prices for tech products like whatever, you know, phones or something went up by like 50-60%. Same is happening right now to apartments, cars, whatever. I mean, I cannot stress this anymore. It is fucking over. Now, one of the more interesting things as well about the current situation is that Vladimir Putin actually signed like an executive order combating the sanctions of the West. Actually, this is really an order that's meant to regulate the flow of like money out of Russia and just the overall flow of foreign currency in Russia. Long story short, the most important part in this order is that, according to it, now, Russians are not allowed to deposit money into their own foreign bank accounts abroad. So, let's say you have a sum of money, like you have cash or whatever, you move to another country, and if you put that money in there, and if you're like a resident of Russia still, well, you're like breaking the law, basically. And another very interesting one that directly affects me is that, according to this like new executive order that's been signed, every single person that is making money from abroad basically in foreign currencies, so that's basically again somebody like me who's getting paid from YouTube or Patreon or Twitch streamers or IT specialists, you know, who work in foreign companies, whatever. First of all, these people, including me, have to, in 3 days after the signing of this order, which was on March 1st or February 28th, they must convert 80% of all of the foreign currency earnings that they've had since the beginning of 2022 to rubles. You get it? So if you were making money from the start of the year in like dollars or whatever, you cannot keep that money in dollars. You have to exchange in your bank 80% of that income from the start of the year to rubles. And second, every single new payment that you're going to be receiving now in dollars as a YouTuber, IT specialist, whatever, if you're getting money from abroad in a foreign currency like dollars, now when you receive those dollars, within 3 days of receiving the funds, you also have to sell 80% of those funds. I mean, not sell, but exchange 80% of that income to rubles. I'm speechless. I am speechless. Now, I clearly understand.
That is, if he can get the money, which a lot of Western countries have already said, no, you're not getting the money. They've completely shut off payment too. I want you to see the human toll of this from the point of view of like a YouTuber, because you recognize, you watch a lot of YouTubers, you probably watched this dude before, watch Twitch streamers, so you understand it a little bit better when it's like someone that you have a personal involvement with, and it's not just some random babushka in the middle of the fucking street being like, we're gonna die.
Why this was done. Basically, actually one of the hottest sanctions, one of the harshest sanctions that was announced on the Central Bank of Russia, which is like the main bank of Russia that actually regulates the use of currency and funds in Russia. And also what they do usually is that the bank of
A YouTuber is not a regular person, but it's one that you were probably going to feel more familiar with.
Russia, it has, well, they had a pretty big like reserve of foreign currency like dollars and euros and Chinese yuan. So basically they would use that currency in order to essentially just sell them and to buy rubles to sort of keep the rates up, because right now obviously with the panic in the economy and everything, a lot of people are changing their rubles to dollars, but the supply of dollars is so low that in most banks, like when you go to buy dollar on the app, it says that you can buy a $1 for like 150 rubles. It's over. It's fucking over. Holy shit. Anyway, so one of the hardest sanctions that the West imposed on Russia is that actually the United States and the European Union decided to seize basically all of the dollars that the Central Bank of Russia has. So essentially what this means is that the Central Bank of Russia doesn't really have the foreign currency anymore to keep the ruble rates up from basically hyperinflating. So essentially what they did with this like new law or order, they basically don't have dollars, so they're getting them from the citizens of Russia in order, I guess, to make their own dollar fund bigger and to battle the devaluation of the ruble. It's really smart, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I did it, but it's like, yeah, what can I fucking do at this point? And you know, guys, even if I get a new bank to which I'm actually able to withdraw money from Patreon and YouTube, you know, the thoughts of having to convert all of that money that I'm getting into rubles instantly, a currency that is super, you know, fluctuating right now, you know, it doesn't sound particularly fun to me. So yeah, I mean, I understand, guys, that maybe this video might seem one-sided to you guys or whatever. You guys might say that it's like insensitive to talk about this or whatever, but this is what my life is like at the moment. It's really weird, it's almost surreal, and it's frustrating, and I just want to share it with you. So yeah, I really don't know what the further move is now. What I did is that I actually opened up crypto wallets for donations. So if you guys want to donate some crypto to me, be my guest, I guess. I mean, again, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm fucking starving over here, not yet. So yeah, you might need that money more than me. Some other people might need it more than me, but yeah, if you're like a fucking crypto billionaire and if you're into it and if you somehow share my pain in the situation, I guess, so I'll put them.
Suck it the fuck up, eat some bread and go protest your dog shit country. Almost like this guy should have realized he's living in a shithole. I want you to understand something hip to hop. You're a monster. You're a disgusting piece of shit. And you will never, ever understand what it's like to not live in the United States of America. Because other countries can never do to America what we do to others. You would never consider that to be acceptable if it happened to you. Okay? I'm friends with the person that can't leave Kharkiv. Sorry, I don't care about this guy. I understand. I'm just showing you the other side of this, okay? Like, he has functionally no fucking power whatsoever. He already has stuck his neck out, specifically by, you're literally calling for sanctions on Israel. What about those people, lol? Dog, I've described my position on this a million times over. Israel will never get the kind of sanctions that we're talking about with respect to Russia. The number one sanctions that you can do on Israel is by pulling American support first and foremost. That would be enough to stop Israel's actions dead in its fucking tracks, which will never happen regardless. Okay? That's our that's not our foreign adversary, that's our ally. He literally is already sticking his neck out and made another video saying like Russians are against this invasion. Russians don't find this invasion to be justifiable. Like, he already made a fucking video.
Them like in the description and in the comments down below. So yeah.
So like what that is significantly more powerful than anything you will ever do for the rest of your fucking life. He's already sticking his head out. He's sticking his neck out. At first you seem neutral on these sanctions, but it seems like you want to repeal them. What the fuck? I want sanctions to come with a fucking an amicable solution. I understand that we are all powerless in the face of Russian action, okay? There's nothing we can do considering that Russia is a nuclear superpower, and you're not going to get NATO involved because that would mean nuclear holocaust. So the only thing you can try to do in this situation is at least like either sit back, fingers crossed, hope that like, you know, there's a revolution within Russia, I guess, of starving people that will then turn around and like try to kill Vladimir Putin. Okay? Which is the goal of these sanctions, which is not going to fucking happen. I hope it would, but I don't think that's, you know, that's something that could happen. But you're talking about a country where like people don't even fucking, you know, people don't even agree with Vladimir Putin, but there's nothing they can do.